As Secretary of State, I definitely want to make it easy for people to vote. I also want to make sure that elections are fair, fast, and accurate. I have a long history in the state of engaging people in civic participation. I definitely think that we have to make it easier for people to vote, and so early person voting is something that I'm very much interested in looking at. Both the mail ballot part of it, where it's actually already available. And I think we just need to make that information better known. And then working with the Board of Canvassers locally and the Board of Elections to see what we can do about early in-person voting, which I think is also should be a more open and accessible option for people. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Online voting, you know, I want to make sure that our elections are secure, and right now I believe that paper ballots provide the best security for our votes. So until technology really comes around and we can provide that level of security that a paper ballot does, I'm going to hold off on that. But I am looking forward to looking into new voting equipment that might make it easier to do things like same-day voter registration with electronic poll books. Whenever you are able to get new equipment, it's a good opportunity to take a step back and say, what else could we do if we had the right equipment? And so, again, as Secretary of State, I look forward to doing all those things, and I have a track record with that, having implemented the central voter registration system and having taken 39 cities and towns' voting lists, turning it into one statewide database. So elections should be fair, fast, and accurate, and I'm the one to get it done. The Secretary of State is literally the Secretary of the State. A lot of people don't realize what it does. And so it collects information about government and our economy. And I want to make that office the state's easy button, the place that you can go to get information about the economy, about starting a business, about going out and voting, about the history of our state, about what government is up to. As Secretary of State, I will make that information that we collect at the Secretary of State's office easy to get and easy to use. Because if it's not easy to get and easy to use, I'd rather use the taxpayer dollars elsewhere. So that's the focus that I'm going to have as Secretary of State. I think the top priority for that office has to be in making government work for people and restoring people's trust in government, that government is there to work for them. To help them, whether you're a small business person that wants to start a business and see it through and to grow and thrive here, or whether you're somebody who's looking for a polling place and what the ballot looks like. A lot of those things are the kinds of things that the Secretary of State can do for people in a very easy way. So voter ID, I believe, should be repealed. And I do so because we have a long history in this country of voter suppression. And in fact, voter IDs, laws in many other states we're seeing the effect of that in terms of suppressing voter turnout. I recognize that there are people who believe that it's stopping a problem. I don't think that we had the right evidence to have passed it. Having said that, it's the law of the state. And I will do two things as Secretary of State. One is I will make sure that we analyze the impact of the legislation going forward to look at whether there's any kind of disenfranchisement that is happening because of this law, that there are people who somehow are not coming out to vote or their ballots are not as likely to be counted because they're using provisional ballots. I think that's really important, a part of what we have to do next. And I will work on having this conversation with the General Assembly. We need to absolutely make sure that our election systems are secure, but we also have to make it easy for people to vote. We can't keep people from voting, and I want to make sure that our election systems are accessible and easy to use for all Rhode Islanders. The Secretary of State office actually has a big role to play because it's the first place that businesses come in to start. And it should be the place where we can help them navigate through the state system and get them started quickly and expeditiously. But what we have right now is sort of a partial system. When I was Deputy Secretary of State, we actually implemented a master application online. And the goal of that program was to actually have an online portal on the web that somebody could just go through and navigate all the different agencies that they needed for permits and other requirements. Sadly, at that time, we didn't have the right leadership in place, and we were not able to get Governor Carcieri to focus on that project and partner with us in the way that we would have liked. And so I'm now very excited about a new leadership coming into the executive branch and working with that person. And I'm going to make sure that the governor hears from me on the very first day that we're both in office, and make sure that they understand that the Secretary of State's office needs to be able to work with all of the state agencies to make it easy to start a business here in the state and to help that business sector grow here in the state. And I look forward to partnering with businesses as we go forward. Open and transparent government is absolutely critical for our democracy. And when I was Deputy Secretary of State, we were able to put open meetings online. It was called an electronic town crier. It was the first time that citizens could look at city and town agendas and state agency agendas up on the web. We've come a long way since 1999, in part thanks to the efforts of then Secretary Langevin with the access reports and the work of the legislature. And I think the legislature, has become more transparent. We now have a bill tracker program that they have implemented where you can follow legislation. The hardest time comes in the last 48 hours of the session. And clearly there's work that needs to be done there, and I look forward as Secretary of State of partnering with the General Assembly to help them find ways in which possibly we can make that last time of the session a little bit more transparent. I'm encouraged by the fact that we have leadership in place that I think will be willing to work with. And I have the experience of having implemented similar programs of open government and transparency in that office. And I think that we will be able to bring about greater transparency voluntarily and with a collaborative kind of effort.